Hey guys, welcome back. If you ask anybody when Halo's biggest, most important year was, 7 times out of 7, they're gonna say 2007. Halo 2 was still massive, riding off the success that it achieved by totally revolutionizing online multiplayer. It continued to be one of the biggest games in the world, and right around the corner was something that was gonna be even bigger. Halo 3. The first Halo to release on the 360, of which was dominating the console market, and the final game in the trilogy. Halo 3 was the conclusion to one of, if not the biggest, most impactful gaming trilogy in the history of the industry. It had a lot riding on it, but Bungie delivered and then some. Halo 3 didn't just live up to expectations, it absolutely blew them away, propelling Halo to an even higher level of popularity and spawning what we all now know as the golden era of Halo. So, how the hell can 2020 even begin to top that? Well, if 2007 was the year of Halo reaching its peak, 2020 is the year of it getting back to its peak, or at least the beginning of its road back to the top. And today, I want to explain why. Welcome to my overview and hopes for Halo in 2020. This is a video that I've done for the past 2 years, right at the start of the year, and in both 2018 and 2019, I was rather hopeful. I was adamant in 2018 that we were getting Halo 6 at the end of the year, and I was adamant that we were going to be getting Halo Infinite in 2019. And obviously that didn't come to pass, but this year, I can finally take solace in the fact that we are definitely getting Halo Infinite by the end of the year. However, Halo Infinite isn't all that's launching this year. For the first time in years, we actually have a pretty stacked year of releases, thanks to MCC mostly. But before we cover that, and also what else is to come, let's just have a brief look back at the launch of Reach. Now, overall, I'd say that Reach's launch on both console and PC has been an overwhelming success. Sales are high, population was strong, overall interest in Halo shot up, at least from what metrics I was able to amateurishly measure, and the launch itself was smooth. In a rather unconventional manner for MCC, it actually launched relatively bug-free. Now, it's not perfect by any means, there are still bugs and issues that need fixing, and, well, the lack of Forge and Theatre really does suck, but overall the launch was pretty smooth. However, over time, the population has dropped, which is normal, but I'm gonna be honest here, right? It's dropped more than I thought it would do. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and try and dissect why this happened and how we're gonna fix it, because frankly, I have no idea, nor is this the video for that discussion. But before we go all doom and gloom, I don't actually think that this is the end of the fucking world.
That's a lot of cash. Rob the bank.
Despite the drop in population, general interest in Halo seems to still be pretty high, at least far, far higher than it was before. I know this is like the wateriest evidence ever, but when 343 started marketing Reach towards like the sort of end of November, I think it was, my daily views shot through the roof. Like, it was the most noticeable increase I think I've ever seen, and they remained that high throughout the entirety of December. Now, they have dropped recently slightly, but honestly not by that much. They're still far higher than they were before, and as I think you can tell by looking at Reach videos not just on my channel, but across the entirety of YouTube, interest is still absolutely there, but people just aren't playing for whatever reason. The same can be said as well if you look outside of YouTube. Like, only the other day, Mint Blitz had a Twitter video of like a Killionaire ×2, which was a sick clip by the way, break 100,000 likes and 2 million views, which is absolutely absurd, and I think is definitely symptomatic of the general rise in interest that Halo is seeing. I think the moral of the story here with Reach is that nostalgia only acts as the foot in the door. It's a fantastic selling point, but it's ultimately redundant if the game itself isn't fun or engaging. Now, I'm not saying that Reach isn't fun nor engaging, but compared to other classic Halo titles, it has a lot more frustrating elements that are likely to turn people away. I mean, for starters, Reach isn't even a classic Halo title, at least in full, but you get my message. This is also something that I think P43 need to bear in mind for Infinite. Nostalgia is all well and good to get people's attention, but to hold it, it's not enough. You need to have a solid game that embraces the nostalgia, but also does new things in its vein to give it longevity and make it feel fresh. And speaking of nostalgia, let's move on to what we're getting this year. Next on the 2020 Halo menu is Combat Evolved and Halo 2 on PC. Now, don't get me wrong here, I'm looking forward to both of these releases, especially Halo 2 Anniversary. Man, playing that in 4K at like 140 frames with like 120 field of view is gonna be glorious. However, I don't expect either of these titles to be as huge or as hyped as the release of Reach was. Both already exist in some capacity on PC, and as individual titles, I don't think they have quite the pull with the current mass gaming audience as, say, Halo Reach, or Halo 3. Now, Halo 3 is where I think we're going to see the next massive boost in popularity. The words Halo 3 PC were as much the stuff of legends as unicorns or dragons for well over a decade, and it's something that people of all generations have waited for a long time to see. El Dorito, long may she rest in peace, really stoked the flames of this and got everyone really hopeful for it again. And now that it's actually happening, I reckon the launch is going to be huge. I mean, this is Halo 3 we're talking about. Come on, do I really need to give any reasoning why? However, just like with Reach, no matter how popular it is at launch, it's bound to drop off over time. That's normal for any game, especially one that originally released in 2007. Like I said earlier, nostalgia is only the foot in the door. So, how do we ensure that MCC retains a solid population over time, leading up to and even succeeding the release of Halo Infinite? Well, step 1 is getting all the games out smoothly, and step 2 is mod tools. Now, we've already seen how popular Halo mods are. I mean, if the almost 2 decades of Halo Custom Edition mods weren't enough, then the recent explosion of Cursed Halo and, of course, the popularity of Reach mods should prove my point. When all the games are out in MCC, we'll have an absolutely solid foundation that, with the help of official mod tools, can then be built off for years to come. These are some of the biggest games in history that, until now, have never been moddable without a JTagged Xbox, and if 343 were to release official tools that allow anybody to start playing around with their favourite games, then we'd really be onto a winner. Mod tools have done absolute wonders for other games on PC that you wouldn't really expect to have sustained long-term populations. World at War, Skyrim, Fallout, and Witcher 3, just to name a few, giving people the ability to modify their favourite games in ways they always dreamt of but were never able to, would be absolutely huge, especially with a game like Halo where there's so many different things to mod and so much potential for mods of all kinds. We've already seen this in part with Reach, but all the mods made for that so far have been done without mod tools, which makes it significantly harder and also limits what you can do with them. Just imagine if we had official, easy to access and understand mod tools that allowed people to mod every single Halo game in the MCC to their heart's content. And then, on top of that, maybe even throw in Steam Workshop support as well to make it even easier for people to download and install these mods. That, right there, is a recipe for long-term success, and if you ask me, the perfect first step in Halo's road back to its peak. Right, so let's move on now to talk about the big one for this year. The thing so anticipated, we've all nicknamed 2020 after it. Halo Infinite. Now, we still have very few details to go off regarding Infinite. It's clearly a return to form in more ways than one, something that Halo drastically needed after the last couple games, and in a way it does feel like a fresh start for the franchise. I mean, it's a soft reboot, it's launching on a new console, so all the woes of the Xbox One that really held Halo down this generation won't be so much of an issue anymore. It's a return to form, with clear inspiration being taken from the games that most regard as the franchise's magnum opuses, and it has a heavy emphasis on nostalgia while also promising something new and fresh as well. It all sounds perfect. However, one of the biggest things that I think people are kind of sleeping on regarding Infinite is that it's not only launching with the Xbox Series X, but it's also more than likely going to be its flagship title. Now, this hasn't happened since combat evolved, and with the massive focus that Phil Spencer's now putting on games for this generation, then I expect Microsoft to market the ever-living shit out of this game. A new Xbox launching with a new Halo is a huge feat. It's Microsoft's trap card to Sony, and they will not let it fail. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't fail. There is always the possibility that it will do, but they are going to try and make damn sure that it is a blockbuster of a release. If all goes as it should do with Infinite, on top of all the other games coming out on PC and the possibility of mod tools, 2020 is looking like the textbook beginning of a road to recovery. Halo advancing as a franchise by studying what made the original game so good and building off that, combined with Halo expanding to a new platform for the first time properly ever, all sounds so good and definitely makes me hopeful for this year. But there's one more thing that actually only just came to me: the Halo TV show. Now, with the recent resounding success of Netflix's Witcher show, and the effect that that's had on both book sales and the game population, I'd be remiss to not mention this show. It doesn't release until next year, but I'd be surprised if hype and marketing didn't kick in this year, maybe sort of towards the end of the year or around Infinite time. Now, it's no secret that from at least what we know so far about this show, albeit what little we know, it's going to be controversial to say the least. I'm not going to rehash why. For those who don't know, I made a video about it a few months ago, so go and check that out if you want to understand why it's going to be controversial. But we did very recently get some pretty good news about it. At the TV Critics Association Winter Tour in Pasadena, Showtime revealed Pablo Schreiber in Chief's full Mjolnir for the first time, seated alone in a ship. And according to all the journalists who saw it, it looks great, extremely detailed, and apparently everything from the armor to the inside of the ship feels very authentic to the games. The bad news is that this picture was kept private and isn't being shared publicly yet, so take from that what you will. Either way though, the fact that the Halo TV show is actually finally happening for real now is very positive, and no matter how we, the Halo audience, might receive it, if it's a genuinely good show that reaches a massive general audience and ends up getting them into the games, then that's only going to benefit us in terms of popularity. So, 2020, all things considered, is looking like a pretty stacked year, and one that could go a long way to getting Halo back to its 2007 levels of popularity. Do I think that that'll happen this year? Probably not, but this year, if everything goes as planned, should end up being the beginning of our return to the top. Granted, the industry has changed a lot since 2007, but I will be damned if somebody can convince me that Halo can't be one of the top dogs again. Anybody? Nah, I don't think so. Right, that's all for today, I think. Are you convinced that we can reclaim our throne this year? Do you think that 2020 will be the true start of our great journey back to redemption? Let me hear it down below in the comments. Huge thank you to all the usual patrons for their continued support over there, and thank you all so much for watching and supporting. I really do appreciate it. And I'll catch you in the next one.